Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn, and I run the services at medcommsnetworking.com. If you go and have a look there, you'll find information, services, resources, activities, events, and so on for people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and the associated businesses. And what I also do is provide a lot of information at a website called firstmedcoms.com, where you'll find lots of information for people who want to know more about medcoms as a career option, so how to get a job and what sort of job opportunities there are. What we're doing here in this session is we're going to pick up on some questions, sort of frequently asked questions from the job seekers, and I'm basically taking a question and getting a perspective from some experienced people in medcoms. And I'm delighted for this question to be joined by Jill, Amelia and Jade from Helios Global Group. So I should say, any of these questions we could answer in different ways, different people will answer in different ways, all medcoms agencies are different and so on. But I've asked these guys to come along and just give their perspective on the following question. So we're going to ask what background and qualifications are required. So a very commonly asked question, obviously. And Jade, I think you volunteered to go first. Give us a little bit of a background and your perspective on that question.
Yeah, so coming into medcoms, I had quite a different background to the usual PhD research-based background. So I actually studied dental surgery at university. It did have, well, it was an integrated master's degree, so I had a small element of research to it. But nonetheless, it was very different to the usual PhD background.
Excellent. Okay, and Jill, what's your background and what's your perspective?
Yeah, so I came into the industry, nearly 10 years ago now, having a very non-conventional, non-traditional entry route. I'd completed a degree at university in hospitality and events management, and I started out with my career with an agency organising events for Big Pharma. And after doing that for a couple of years, I was always very intrigued and very interested in the role of the medcoms teams on site that I was frequently interacting with. So I was very interested in the why the meetings were happening. So I researched the medcoms industry and applicable entry-level roles that would suit my background, and kind of the rest is history. And it was a very natural path to progress my career at the time.
Okay, thank you. And Amelia, what's about your
Yeah, rather boringly, I had a very traditional route into medcoms. So I'd done a biology degree, I'd done a master's, I'd done a PhD, and I'd done a lot of public engagement and science communication during particularly my PhD, and that was something I really enjoyed. And then I found out about medcoms, and it was a perfect fit.
Okay, so one of the points that I like to make to people is that there's a wide variety of backgrounds in medcoms, and you sort of represent that, yeah. But having said that, life science background, very important generally. Although Jill, you didn't have a life science background, sorry, yeah.
I didn't.
So, and I'm not saying sorry you haven't got it. I'm just clarifying that because these sweeping generalizations are made, yeah. And there's always exceptions and so on. But if you'd say, and there's different roles within medcoms, so generally a life sciences background is useful if not required, particularly on the content side of it. However, no life sciences background doesn't stop you getting into medcoms, particularly on the project management side, sort of thing. So there's a point in there somewhere. If you have got life sciences background, you're going in the content direction, people think you need a PhD. That's a common question. And I'm always a little bit careful when I answer that one, because actually having a PhD, certainly postgraduate qualification, can be very useful. Yeah. And that's not because it's some sort of elitist business, it's because actually you bring with you quite a lot of very useful transferable skills. And there are some agencies that require you to have a PhD, if not postdoc experience. And there's lots of agencies that don't. And overall, we tend to say you don't need it, but it can help. So there's, again, a point to the understanding there. But increasingly these days, I think there's a lot of agencies looking at entry level who are looking at a broader range than the PhD postdoc. Sorry, someone was going to ask a question or say something there. Was it Amelia?
I was just going to say, yeah, generally I think you're completely right. It's preferred to have a postgraduate degree going into it because it gives you that kind of extra, I suppose, life experience and independent working skills. But I think increasingly as well, like if you have just got a graduate degree, don't think that you need to go off and do a master's just to get into medical communications. Yeah. There are quite a lot of companies that have entry-level roles that will take graduates.
Yeah, absolutely. And flipping it around, I've been talked to by lots of PhD postdocs who say it's great to find a business that likes PhD postdocs, because actually they say, I don't know, it's been a struggle because I'm overqualified for other things, but actually this business does embrace that. And the healthcare professionals type background is also an interesting one, because people say, oh, you must have to be a medic or whatever to come into medical communications, because and you go, no, in fact there's not a lot of medics in medical communications, but perhaps a growing number. But certainly a healthcare type background is useful, and clinical experience can be useful for the sorts of reasons you were talking about, Jade, in terms of patient contacts and so on and so forth. So I guess the clear message is lots of backgrounds welcome, and it's a sort of it's a broad church, as it were. And I suppose the question I was going to ask, which people ask again of me, and I think I know the answer to this, so I'm sort of setting this up a little bit, but people will say, what's the magic answer? What is the course that I can take which will enable me to get a job in MedComms? I don't think there is one, but have you got any perspectives on that?
No, I know a few universities are kind of more frequently doing medical communication degrees and things like that. It's not something that I've seen, you know, in the companies that I've worked in, at least, that somebody's come in with that degree and, you know, that set them aside. I don't see the harm in it, but it's probably quite different to the real world of working in MedComms.
Yeah, and to be a little bit clear on that one, I don't see medical communication degrees. I see science communications degrees, and some of them have a concentration on medical communications, which is a little bit different. But no, exactly right. There aren't any sort of those sorts of courses that will set you up. What I say to people is sort of, you know, anything. If you like writing and communication stuff, you know, do stuff that shows that you're passionate about that, and that comes over. Lots of universities run courses on writing papers and things like this. It's good to do them, but there isn't a magic answer, sort of thing. So I guess we're all nodding each other and saying that's a fair point. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, okay. Well, I think that in itself was just a nice, useful little insight into the sort of backgrounds that are eligible to medical communications. I can't even say it, MedComms. It's much easier to say. Okay. All right. So look, thank you very much for answering that question. I'm going to say thank you very much and goodbye, and take it easy, guys. Stay safe. Just give a little wave to say goodbye. All right.